Jay here for Stretford, Paddock, and this is a special video, a look at who Manchester United could buy based off their World Cup performances, or even not just their World Cup performances, but maybe based off their club performances and what they've done in the World Cup as well. Now, you don't want to hear me just sat here pontificating about who Manchester United could sign after this, I was going to say this summer, but it's not the summer, is it? It's the Winter World Cup. What you want to hear from is journalists. You want to hear from some of the leading journalists in the country. They've been giving us their opinion on who United should buy. Now, they've been over in Qatar. We spoke to Henry Winter from The Times. We spoke to Jamie Jackson from The Guardian, and we spoke to James Ducker from The Telegraph. And we asked them all to send us a video when they were over in Qatar, letting us know the players that had impressed them, the players they thought could come and do a job for Manchester United. Now, they all did that, although one of them, and I'll let you guess which one, waited until he got back to England and then said it us, which is great, it's fine. I appreciate they're all busy men, and we are fully grateful for them getting involved and giving us their opinion, because they've been over there in Qatar, they've seen these players firsthand, and doesn't matter whether they've seen them firsthand or not, they've got opinions on some of the players Manchester United could be looking at. We know we have got this January transfer window coming up. It's not just January, of course, there's the summer as well. United, with new owners potentially coming in before the summer, could go big again, or could at least sign someone in the summer, if not January, or if both, hopefully. So let's have a look what the journalists had to say on who Manchester United should be looking at in the next transfer windows.
Hi, this is Henry Winter, Chief Football Writer of The Times at England's training base in Qatar. So who could Manchester United sign? I think the first thing they need to do is to make sure that Marcus Rashford re-signs. You've seen how good he is out here. He's hunting the golden boot. He's just been terrific. So it's great to see him playing well. So Manchester United, just make sure you keep hold of the fabulous Marcus Rashford.
There's a lot of players generating a lot of excitement, as you'd understand, at a World Cup, and it's always the case. You know, there's plenty of players that have caught my eye who are probably not really well known to an international audience. So Yunus Musa, the young Valencian US midfielder, looks like he's got a bright future ahead of him. Be very impressed with Daichi Kamada, who plays his club football for Eintracht Frankfurt. He's been a sort of key cog in Japan's midfield.
The first one is the Bayern Munich and Germany player Jamal Musiala, who's now only 19 still. Very good player. Can play sort of number 10. Wide left, wide right, tricky, creative, was schooled at Chelsea, played for England, age groups as well before playing for Germany, which is where he's born, in Stuttgart, I believe. But I just think he would add, you know, more fantasy to sort of Manchester United's front line. And as I say, because he knows the English game, you've got that added element that you're not too concerned about. If ever he would settle in.
And then clearly two of the England midfielders, Declan Rice, who's been talking about his Champions League ambitions, and Jude Bellingham, who's just 19 years old, has got so much talent. If Manchester United could get either of those, and it's going to be a tough battle next year for those two talents, then that would strengthen midfield.
Declan Rice, who I still think is the best sort of English midfielder, all-round box-to-box midfield. I think if you had him in the midfield with Casemiro, Christian Eriksen, and obviously Fernandes sort of further ahead, then I don't think you can really go wrong. So they're my two.
Central midfield, Enzo Fernandez of Argentina. A fabulous player. We saw his goals, but also the work that he puts in as well. Benfica, 21, clearly a talent, will cost a pretty penny, probably 60 million euros upwards, probably even more. But he's a special player.
There's going to be a lot of interest from a United perspective in Cody Gakpo, who's been played sort of centrally, either as a number 10 or as a central striker in a 2 for Holland at this World Cup. But speak to a lot of the guys at PSV Eindhoven, and they feel his best position is sort of wide on the left, cutting inside. Van Gaal has obviously had other ideas and has got Gakpo to work really, really well in his system.
Manchester United need a striker. You've been saying this for a long time. You don't need me to tell you that. Cody Gakpo, PSV, the Netherlands. He's good. Whether he's elite, top of the range, remains to be seen.
Gakpo is certainly an interesting one. I would put money on him making a better fist of it in the Premier League than some of the Dutch players in recent years have done. But probably wouldn't get too carried away by how a player performs for his country at a major tournament. I think you'd want to take maybe a 1-2 year view at club level as well.
Goalkeeper, I know there's been talk about David De Gea and who should be his successor. One of the goalkeepers who's been impressing out here, obviously Unai Simon of Spain, but I think Diogo Costa, Porto and Portugal, he's 23, he's clearly a talent. He's one of the best goalkeepers around, young goalkeepers, and Portuguese or from Portugal should be slightly easier to get.
I'm a bit reluctant to sort of put sort of too much, emphasis on how a player performs at the World Cup. I think we've seen sort of plenty of instances down the years of players being signed on the back of outstanding tournaments. It's not necessarily always worked out. Certainly seen that with Kleberson and the likes of Karol Boborski at United in the past. So I think there's a degree of wariness. I think you have to bear in mind that there's a lot of patriotic sort of fervour around a tournament for players. They're away with the national teams. It means so much to so many of them, and I'm not always sure it's the best a 4-week tournament or even less for those players who go out earlier is the best place to sort of fully judge them. I know that might sound daft given sort of what a grand show it is, but I think a lot of clubs now will take a much more sort of broader view of players.
So, no surprises there, really. I think a lot of those players you kind of expected, although maybe James Ducker saying the kid from the USA is at Yunus Musa was a bit of a left field one. But a name that came up there, obviously, was Declan Rice. Now, Declan Rice is a player that Manchester United have been linked with for quite some time now. In fact, it goes back about 3 or 4 years. I know we've been linked with him last summer and the summer before, but if you look, United were first linked with him a few years ago, and straight away, West Ham had this sort of exuberant price tag on him. It was like, if you want to get him, you're going to have to spend 80, 90, even upwards of 100 million. Now, I like Declan Rice. I think he's a very good midfielder. Do I think there's value for money in getting him if you're going to have to spend around 100 million? I don't. If Declan Rice was 50, 60 million, I'd be all over it. I think he may cost a lot more. Will Manchester United go for him? Potentially. You look at the age of Casemiro. I know he's a different type of player, but also Christian Eriksen as well. They're both 30-odd, or 30, I should say. So you look at it, you go, okay, we probably do need to bring someone in. Now, we've got younger players. We've got the likes of Scott McTominay, of course. Bruno's, he's still in his 20s. But it does feel like Manchester United is still after a midfielder now. Frankie de Jong has been one that's been linked with us. Declan Rice is another one. I don't really see us getting Declan Rice, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was still an interest there from Manchester United. And maybe if West Ham didn't play hardball, maybe if they sort of lowered their asking price a little bit, if they were sort of under the realisation that they are going to lose him and they have to let him go eventually, and there was a deal to be made there, I wouldn't be against it. I'm not quite sure it is going to happen. Now, another player that was spoke about there, I think James Ducker mentioned, was Cody Gakpo. He's probably the most likely Manchester United signing. It feels like that anyway, doesn't it? We've been linked with Cody Gakpo for so long now, and not just so long, really. It's not that long if you look at the amount of time. It's just so frequently. Every major newspaper, almost every journalist has said there's a proper interest from Erik ten Hag and Manchester United in Cody Gakpo. And let's not forget, Cody Gakpo, like Declan Rice to be fair, had a very good World Cup. I thought Cody Gakpo, and certainly in the group stages, was probably being one of the most spoken about players at this World Cup. Now, we know with Gakpo, there's a deal there that could be made for a relatively cheap, if you can use the word cheap when you're talking about 50, 60 million pound signings deal, because his contract doesn't have that long left on it. If United could get him, I'd be all for that. The only slight reservation is he's a little bit similar to what we've already got in the sense that he can play on the left and he likes to go in, cut inside. He can play in the middle when you need him to, but he's not an out-and-out number 9. Is that a sticking point? I'm not so sure, but I don't think anyone would be complaining if we went out and got Cody Gakpo, because he's scoring a lot of goals for his club and he's scoring a lot of goals for his country, including in the World Cup as well. Now, another name that came up there is Jamal Musiala. Jamie Jackson mentioned him. Now, this is a kid, obviously, who plays in Germany or for Germany, and I think he was eligible to play for England. It does feel like we missed out there. Are we going to get him from Bayern Munich? Probably not. He's someone that Stephen Howson's a big fan of. I think he's spoken about him. He's someone as well that, despite the fact Germany didn't have a good World Cup, he did. Would be great to see him coming to Manchester United. doubtful, though. There's one or two other players there that were mentioned as well. There was the kid, Kamada, who's at Frankfurt, who was mentioned, again, by James Ducker. James Ducker there, not just going for the obvious signings, and he did mention the fact that World Cup signings don't always work out. Very, very true. There's a player that you feel like if a deal was to be made, United could get it over the line. Not someone, though, I've been hearing about a lot when it comes to being linked with Manchester United. Henry Winter went for a few of the obvious ones, didn't he? Not just Declan Rice. He also mentioned Jude Bellingham. We all know about Jude Bellingham. I think that most of us would love to see him at United. It looks like he could be heading to Anfield, though, unfortunately. But as always, we'll keep you posted on that one. I think he's one of those players where if you look at him, you look at what he's doing, you look at the fact he's 19 years old, he's on that trajectory where he just keeps getting better and better. There's a feeling there that he could be the real deal. He could be that type of midfielder that I'm scared to say certain names, but let's put it this way. In the past, United have gone out and broken transfer records to buy midfielders, young midfielders who are looking like they could go on to big and better things. I'm talking about the likes of Brian Robson and Roy Keane. Could Bellingham be even mentioned in that sort of bracket? I'm not saying he could. I'm not saying I am. I'm just saying in the past, United have gone out and smashed the transfer record to bring in those young midfielders. Now, Bellingham, is he the next calibre player like that? I'm not so sure. If he goes to Liverpool, I think he's rubbish. If he goes to United, maybe we can have that conversation. One final point was that Henry Winter said renew Rashford. We know he's signed an extension or his extension's been triggered. I'd love to see Rashford on a long-term deal. Make sure you get involved in the comments and the chat and let us know what you think about those targets, what you think about any potential Manchester United signing, and should we be buying players based on what they've done in the World Cup. A big thanks to Jamie Jackson, to Henry Winter, and to James Ducker for getting involved. This has been a special look at United targets. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget as well to check out the link in the description to our event in Dublin on the 30th of December. We want to see you there. Thanks for watching.